Hello and welcome back to Mindset Matters. My name is Victoria and I'm very excited today because we have another guest on the show. Guest number two, we've got Tess Perrin, who is joining us all the way from France. So Tess is I would say one of my best friends. We met while I was living abroad in France. She's an American French girl who grew up in the US but now lives in France. She's a property owner. We love that. She's a solo traveler and she's one of those people who's just honestly an overall vibe. So I just love how quickly we were able to connect, become friends, especially the situation back when I was living in France in 2020. And I'm really glad that we've been able to maintain our long distance friendship as well. So welcome, Tess.
Thank you. What an intro. I want like that to be the intro for anytime somebody's like introducing me, like I want that clip to play.
Yeah. Property owner, I'm like snaps for the
Yeah.
property owner.
And
We
just
can't
overall
own
vibe.
property in Canada.
Yeah, too
Overall
expensive.
vibe, right? We love it. So one thing think is like super interesting about you when I first met you is the fact that you grew up in Utah and then you went to France kind of for university and you kind of just like stayed. So I wonder what your decision was like kind of or how was it growing up and transitioning then to moving to France?
Yeah, good question because like actually I think people ask this a lot, like how did you decide to stay in France? And I don't think I ever really like made a concrete decision. I mean, I did because I ended up here somehow, but I never like went through that thought process where I was thinking, okay, like pros and cons list. I feel like I just kind of ended up staying where I was like, oh, I mean, I like it here, so why not? And I don't know, I was just having a good time. So I said, okay, I'll just stay here. And university was a lot cheaper to stay here.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know. Then I just like started building my life. So I was thinking, okay, it's too late to go back now. So I just decided
Okay.
I'm gonna stay.
And were there like cultural differences that kind of attracted you to stay in France?
Yes, but like also since like my whole like dad's side of the family is French, I always kind of had like the double thing growing up. So it wasn't like such a big transition where I was like kind of shocked, like, okay, this is crazy. But I think like the making friends thing was a lot different, I think, in France than, I mean, I guess also you know that too, that it was like it's way
Yeah.
more difficult to make friends in France, I think, than it is in the US. Maybe like the relationships are a bit more
Hmm.
sincere in France, but it was like such a process, just fighting to survive out there.
No, for sure. And I want to talk to you about friendship because I know you've moved around a lot
Yeah.
in France. So I wanted to talk to you about like when you went to university, was it hard to kind of maintain friendships like from back home, or did you find you were just trying to dive into your university life? Was it like nice being like long distance with friends back home, or was it weird? Like how was that?
Yeah, I think actually like the friendships with my friends back home, especially in the beginning, since I thought I was going back, I think we like ended up. I mean, we still even now I think we still like stay in contact really well. Obviously, there's some friends where like you talk to them less, but for me, I'm just like okay, I consider them like still like my best friends and things like that. But definitely like you win some, you lose some kind of situation, I guess. Where
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'm not hanging out with like my friends back home, I guess, all the time, but I think I still like place those relationships like higher up than like my relationships that maybe I made, maybe not higher up, but like I still like really hold them close to my heart, where I'm like, okay, like these are my friends that like built who I am now. And then now all the additional friends I
Mm.
made like in France, which it's kind of gone through like a lot of cycles since I moved around so much. But I don't know. I think it's like just like kind of a tack on where it's like, oh, these are like my bonus friends from like I don't know, my friends back home. I don't know. The
Yeah.
two are like very separate actually for me. Where I'm like, oh yeah, like there's the Utah friends and then there's like
Okay.
my France friends. I don't know. Really weird.
Yeah. And one thing I thought of is like, I don't know if this is similar for your friend group, but in the States, I know it's common for people to go to school all over the States, anyways.
Yeah.
Whereas in Canada, it's like our universities are like a couple hours from each other. So it's like
Yeah.
if
Wow.
someone goes across the country, it's a huge deal. Whereas for me, it's like, oh, I'm a 3 hour drive from my friends
Yeah.
if I wanted to keep up with them. So I don't know if that was like made it easier for you that people kind of spread out anyways at that time.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess like now that I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I don't actually have that many friends maybe in Utah, But like the ones that I'm just thinking like, wait, do I even have that many friends? But I mean, most
You're
of
like,
them
wait, I
all,
have no
I'm
friends.
like counting. I'm like, actually, there's not that many. But I mean, I think a lot of them are still in Utah, so that makes it easy. Like when I want to go back and visit, I can just kind of all see them. And then I have one
Hmm.
friend who's like now on the other side of the country, so that makes it a bit more tricky. But I mean, like the kids spread out if they want to, but for me, actually, it's nice that they're all in like Utah.
And okay, so did you notice your friendships like change at all when you moved away? Because I know we touched on like you're like you prioritize them. So what did you
Yeah.
do to kind of prioritize it? Like, were you texting a lot? Did you try to like schedule like FaceTimes with them? Because I know it can be hard for people like considering moving away to be like, wait, like I can't leave behind my friends.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that I don't know, maybe I like just don't think that much when I'm making decisions. I think I just kind of go for it and then like see what consequences happen later. I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of how I've always like done things and then just hope for the best. But I don't know, it kind of works
Okay.
out for some most of the stuff I do, I guess. But I think like to maintain the friendships, I mean, I like kind of just text them once in a while and be like, "Hey, like thinking about you," or like I mean, even what we do, like between like sending each other like Shrek memes and stuff like that, I feel like that actually is
Yeah.
like a really good base of friendship. I swear, because at least it's like, oh yeah, here I
Yeah.
saw this meme that made me think of like when we were kids, and then you just like start a conversation or just like touching base and things like
Hmm.
that. Or sometimes I'll just try to randomly call, but also the time difference and everything is tricky. Like as
True.
adults, everybody has
Yeah,
their
I feel like
whole lives.
we totally. Yeah, and I feel like we obviously have been able to like maintain our friendship
Yeah,
being like far apart. And I know when you were traveling, which we'll get into, like we kind of started talking a bit more because like we were on the same time zone-ish.
yeah, that's
So
true.
like that was kind of fun. But even like long distance friendships, sometimes I feel like there is like a benefit to being a long distance friendship because there's less
Yeah,
pressure to kind of like maintain a friendship or see people all the time. And as we get older, I feel like you kind of naturally see people less or you're busy doing your own thing. And some people find that hard.
yeah,
So
or
I
they're
don't know.
like
In that way, I
offended
feel
by it
like long distance
almost.
friendship has been good.
Yeah, yeah,
Can you say that
totally.
again?
I said, or it's sometimes like some people, like kind of get offended by like not seeing people all the time. But it's kind of like, okay, I mean, we're all super
Hmm.
busy. And so, I mean, sometimes, yeah, I love long distance friendships just because they're like almost in a way easier to maintain because it's like you get all like the fun or like not the fun like activities aspect, but you kind of get the like you can just like kind of talk to your friends when you need to and be like, hey, like I don't know, touch base when it works. And I don't know, I feel like there's like less pressure because you know that it's like long distance. I don't know. I like it.
For sure. Yeah. And it's like, well, we can't hang out on a random Tuesday.
Yeah,
So there's no expectation to hang out on a random
yeah,
Tuesday if like you don't feel like it.
yeah, exactly. But
No,
then
for
it's like when
sure.
you do get to meet
Um,
up, it's like way more, I don't know, it's like planned and like thought out. And there's like intention behind like meeting up.
yeah, definitely. Now, one thing I think is kind of funny is that we met on Bumble Friends.
Yeah,
And you probably had a little more experience using that app as someone who like kind of moves around France. But
yeah.
for me, that was my first time moving that or using the app. And I had only met up with like a couple girls and maybe saw them like one or two times. But one challenge I really had was like speaking French with like francophone girls. I felt like my jokes weren't landing. It was like I wasn't funny in French. And like I love that our friendship is like very like we laugh a lot
Yeah,
and like I
yeah.
think we're both think each other are funny. But like I remember thinking like, dang, like I just made a joke and it's like awkward silence, literally crickets. And
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
happens
like,
so much.
it's so hard for me to make friends. Like, I know you're already bilingual, but did you ever notice that like French versus English kind of differentiation
A
with
hundred
people?
percent. Like I'm pretty sure people don't think I'm funny in French, which is like really sad because, and like even I tell people this all the time.
Because you're hilarious.
Yeah, I tell
I'll
people
vouch
like
for you
I
any
feel like
day.
I have to like convince French people like no, I really am funny because I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like I try to like do my humor that I would use like with English speakers, and then I just like translate directly to French, and then I just
No,
realize like
the
God, I'm
way like
snapping.
the
It's just so
sentences,
awkward.
it's so awkward. The way like you land a joke in English, I feel like is just so different. And that's one thing I feel like I never really picked up on was like how to tell a joke in French. Like it just,
Yeah.
I was like never funny.
Yeah, but even like other French people, sometimes they'll make
Um,
jokes, and I'm like, wait, that wasn't really that funny to me. So I don't know. I just don't think I think I have an
mm,
American sense of
so
humor.
maybe it's a total cultural thing. What about like the hardest part living abroad, but like not always staying in the same place? Because I know you've traveled around France a
I think,
lot.
yeah, I mean, like 7 times in the past 7 years. So that's way too
Oh my
much, I
God.
think,
Okay.
actually. I wouldn't recommend. But they'd be like, oh, I'd make friends, and then they'd leave, or then I'd leave. And so you're like constantly rebuilding all these friendships. So
Okay.
that's frustrating.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I feel like here, like growing up in Toronto, it's like people usually go to university like maybe a couple hours away. And then it's kind of natural that for a few years people then live in the city because they're working. So it's like if I wanted to have a reunion with even like university friends, it's like I could see them at any given time, which
Yeah,
is like,
that's
it's
kind of
just
nice,
so
though.
weird. But also like, it's kind of nice, but it's also nice to like be forced to kind of go out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Like I feel like you're someone who's now used to getting out of your comfort zone and you're like, well, I have to be social because if I'm not, I'm going to have no friends. And like
literally.
that's something I admire about you because I feel like you're really good at being social and like making friends everywhere you go, which like I don't know, when I do things alone, I do love doing things alone, but I sometimes wish I was like a little bit more social
Yeah.
and like willing to talk to people because you kind of miss out. I don't know.
Yeah, I think also I've had like so many times where, when you're like doing something alone or even just like going grocery shopping and you see like, I don't know, a group of girls and you're like, oh wait, they look like they're having so much fun. And then you kind of like question yourself like, oh wait, do I
Mhm.
have that? Or like, I think that's something I want. Like I want to have a group of girls I can like go out with and I don't know, just chat, whatever. And so yeah, I think I've
Yeah.
definitely like forced myself to make that happen because otherwise, yeah, I would keep that if I didn't have any friends.
Yeah. Now that you bought an apartment, which again, congrats. You've had it for like almost a year now?
Yeah, it'll be a
Not
year
that you
like
were
in a
there for a
couple.
while.
That's true. Like in a couple weeks, it'll be.
Okay. That's exciting. So now that you have like your own place, do you feel kind of more settled? Like have you been able to kind of meet more friends where you are, or is it the similar situation?
Yeah, kind of. Like since I was gone for also like 7 months, I think that didn't really help. But
True.
I think for sure, like I feel more settled where maybe I have a bit more of like a routine. I think the friends thing is like always kind of work in process progress for me because like I'll meet people because I still even like since I work from home, I will still like meet people through Bumble and things like that because just but a lot of people are like au pairs or just there for like a short amount of time. And so then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find myself in this situation again soon. So I mean, I have like a nice group of friends that I've been hanging
Mm-hmm.
out with like regularly now, but I mean, actually, they're all gonna be leaving soon. So sad and have to start over again, but it's okay.
Yeah.
At
That's
least
so
I'm
sad.
getting really good at this, like
But it
making
kind of
friends
forces you
though.
to meet a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it forces you, I feel like, to meet a lot of people, which is kind of cool because sometimes I think people get stuck in like, okay, these are my friends and I don't need anyone else in my life and that's it. But like, there is value to kind of expanding your circle and like meeting people.
Yeah,
And like,
definitely.
one thing I did this year was like my boxing, and like, that was really cool to like meet people through going to an activity several times a week. Was like, okay, I'm seeing the same faces, like, naturally, we're gonna start talking. And like sometimes you vibe with people, sometimes you don't, but at least like I don't know, I do feel like you said earlier, like activities are a great way to meet people because you always already have something in common. It's like easier.
Yeah, definitely. Like, do you still
I
keep
don't
in
know.
contact with some other people from boxing still?
Yeah, we have a group chat and like we'll chat here and there. There was actually a party last night, like a thank you party, but I couldn't go, so that was kind of sad. But
So, I mean, yeah,
yeah,
that's
I
nice.
feel
Like, at
like I'll
least you're,
still go to classes and see them.
yeah, and at least you get to like meet people from like different areas of life where you probably would have never met them like otherwise. Like, there was no way you would have met these
Oh,
people
for
otherwise,
sure. Yeah. Okay, and speaking of that, meeting people you never would have met, I want to talk a little bit about your solo traveling adventures. One thing I like about Tess is that she's very, I guess, spontaneous. You kind of like think, you don't always think about things, you kind of just like do them. And I think that's a really nice quality to have. I'm sure sometimes maybe it gets you in trouble, but like it's a good quality to have because humans, I think, spend and waste so much of their life thinking about things they want to do or how to do something instead of just going and doing it. So I love that you're like, okay, I'll just go for it and then figure it out after. Have
Yeah.
you always been that way?
I don't know. Actually, I think I
I
was like a
love that.
really like stressed kid before. Like when I was younger, I think I was really
Mm.
like I planned out and everything, and like I didn't think it was like so smart to just like do things. I was like, no, you really have to look at all the sides. And in a way, like I still am that way, but I think I've just become maybe more brave where I'm thinking, you know what, like why shouldn't things work out for me? Like why not, you know? And so I think that only came
Yeah.
like I've always been like maybe a little bit crazy in a way, but I think like the kind of just do and then hope for the best like just came recently.
No, but I like that because I think that's a really important mindset of like everyone talks about like lucky girl syndrome of
Yeah,
like, well, things are going to work out. And if you believe it, usually things do work out. And I'm totally a believer of like the power of the mind and that like you don't need to have a plan because life always is going to throw stuff at you anyways.
yeah.
So
So might as
you
well just go
can't
for it.
have a plan for every single thing. Totally. I love
Yeah,
that. So that kind of led you last year to spontaneously like solo travel for 6 months. So I just want to know, like, I think from what I remember, you went with only having like booked a couple days, your first couple days, and
yeah.
then you're just like, I'm just gonna roll with it.
Literally, even I think I had told
I
you
just
like
like,
the
I
day
don't know if
before, I
that's
was like, I don't
something.
know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you literally texted me, you're like, yeah, by the way, like I have 2 days booked and then I don't even know what I'm doing. And
Literally.
I remember thinking, like, that is stressing me out. Like, good for you. That's honestly huge, Tess, that you can say that you went and did that. And then you were gone for like 7 months. Like, how
Literally.
did you even navigate doing that? Like, what are some of your like best stories? Like, I just want to know about like your favorite parts of that experience.
Oh my gosh, that's so hard because first of all, like even when I look back at it now, I feel like that wasn't me. Like I'm like, oh yes, this version of this certain girl like did this crazy thing. And then when I look back, I'm like, wait, I like sometimes I forget all the crazy things that
Yeah,
happened
you
just
did
because I was
it.
like, wait, that was me actually. Like, wow, who like I can't believe I did that. So it's pretty
Who is
insane.
she?
Yeah, really, like who's that girl? She's so cool. So I'm really no, I was seriously it was so good though. Like I'm really happy I did it. I mean, definitely like it was such a privilege though because already to get like the 6 months off of work and everything, like thank goodness. Otherwise, I mean, this probably would never have happened. So that was really cool. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It was just I think like the best part of it for me, honestly, though, was like meeting people, like new people everywhere I was going. But I don't know,
Totally.
everything was just it's hard to like even think about okay where do I start like it just so many things happened and just like the people that you meet is insane.
I think that is like one of the best parts, and I think that goes back to us talking about before, like how you are very like fearless in your social situations and like you're often down for the adventure and you go for it. And like I think of solo travel and I'm like, okay, the times when I was in France, I remember I went to Lyon for a weekend or like 4 days or 3 days by myself. And even that was really hard for me. Like I wish I was more social, but I think it was partly like the French barrier of like
Yeah.
I was a little bit nervous to speak French with like French people, even though I literally spoke French fine. Like you've heard me,
Literally,
like
yeah,
I
you're like bilingual.
I can speak French, but yeah, I'm like literally bilingual. But like I was so nervous to like be social, and I wish I kind of pushed myself a bit out of my comfort zone then, because I think of solo travel. I'm like, oh, it's kind of scary. Like, can you really have fun by yourself? But I guess you're saying like, well, I wasn't by myself because I constantly like met people. Would you say
Yeah,
like everywhere you went, you were always
I think I was probably 95% of my trip I was with people. Like there was
wow.
like a span I think of like maybe 8 days where I don't know I think I was just like off my mojo or something, but I like didn't talk to anybody except for like obviously like locals and stuff. But those were like the longest 9 days of
Hmm.
my life, I swear. But I mean most of the time because I think also maybe in Europe it's a bit different because I don't know, people like maybe it's not the same kind of vibe that's going on or I don't know, maybe something in Europe is different, but I think especially like in South America or like in Asia, it was really easy because everybody that was there is like kind of doing the same thing. Or maybe not always by
Mm.
themselves, but they're like in the same kind of like mindset of okay, like we're here and like we're far away from home. And so then you kind of bond over like, oh yeah, like where are you from? And I don't know, it just happens super naturally. Like I spent literally 2 weeks with like these three people that I met that I like love them. They're the best. And we just spent like full 2 weeks together and we like did the Machu Picchu together and things like that. And I'm thinking, okay,
Yeah.
like 2 weeks ago, I would have never imagined like, okay, I'm just gonna go like hike for 3 days with these people. Like, oh, that's great.
Well, I think it's also so crazy is like it goes back to the idea of like not planning everything. Like
Yeah,
when you do anything in life, I think you need some level of flexibility. So like if there's someone out there listening who like wants to solo travel but doesn't even know where to start, like what advice would you kind of give them?
I mean, actually, yeah, this like I think this even goes so well into like your whole like mindset matters and everything because I think it like people need to remember to like life isn't a planned out thing, you know, like you can just kind of wing it. I mean, and maybe that's I just say that to like reassure myself, but I think I'm really happy actually that I didn't plan my trip because I don't think it would have like been the same kind of like adventure or experience because if by not planning everything, I kind of left myself room to see what other people were doing and maybe I made like a really great connection with somebody and I was like, you know what? Like why don't I just go wherever they're going? And I think like that made the trip
Mm-hmm.
that much better just because I was kind of the whole time I was just thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm just going for it, you know, like whatever happens, happens. And there was no pressure for me to be like, oh, I need to see this and I need to see this and like check all these boxes. It was more like, I'm just here. I'm just going to have the experience that happens to me, like based on who I meet and everything. And I'll just see from there. And that, like, I think now, even like looking forward, I'm like, I think I'm just going to be way more spontaneous for everything, or at least try to be more spontaneous for everything that I do.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I think that's even like, okay, someone who's listening who's like, there's no way I could do that for like that amount of time. I feel like even just taking that adventure mindset of like, okay, we'll start small. Like maybe
Yeah.
you plan yourself, like it could be a day trip where you just pick a place. I like to do this where I pick like a little town and I'll just
Yeah.
like go there for the day and kind of explore. I'm like, okay, then maybe extend that. Like, where can I do it where it's like, maybe like over 2 days where I'm exploring somewhere and like start small. It doesn't have to be completely
Yeah. Yeah.
unplanned because I've definitely seen the other side where like there's one YouTuber, I forget her name, but she does like solo travel content and I've been like inspired to like watch her videos and she does a lot where she's like, yeah, like I like planning a few things because it forces me to kind of get out of the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Like if you're someone who is anxious, I think planning could be good, but I think always like leaving some kind of wiggle room for like things to happen is so important because like you said, like life is not planned and sometimes it just like throws things at you.
Yeah.
Was there
Definitely.
like one crazy experience that you can think of, like the first thing that comes to mind of like something super super unexpected that happened
Oh my gosh, I think everything
but
was
ended
so
up like working
unexpected
out?
though. Oh my gosh, I think one of my favorite memories, which was just like, and this was probably one of the few and rare times that I was by myself actually, but when I had just arrived in Peru, and like right before I met actually the people that I spent like my entire trip time in Peru with, I was like, okay, I don't really know what to do, and I think that also I like kind of the flip side of just kind of going with the flow is that sometimes I'm like, wait, I have no idea like what I'm doing here. Like I would just show up somewhere and then be like, okay, wait, what do I do now? So I'd try to like find activities to do and things like that. So, and to preface this, I'm not like a cyclist or like some kind of Iron Man marathon runner. Like I'm just like a regular sporty girl, you know. But so I saw these like people renting bikes, and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go bike into this like desert or whatever because it's like some kind of desert national park. And I thought, okay, I'm just gonna like bike around for a few hours. And I ended up biking like 30 kilometers like by myself in the middle of this
Oh
desert.
my god.
And I was like the only one. And I was just thinking this, first of all, I thought, okay, maybe this is a little bit dangerous, but this was probably like the most
Yeah.
fun I've ever had by myself in my entire life. The whole time I was like talking to myself, I was singing, I was like, this is amazing. And I was just like having the best time of my life. And I never thought I could have that much fun by myself. Like this like opened my eyes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And like I know
Totally.
you're the queen of doing things like by yourself and taking yourself out. And I even remember like on my
Yeah.
bike ride, I was like, oh my gosh, Victoria would love this.
Oh, that's so funny.
Amazing.
I love that. Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm like, I love doing things alone, but I feel like I definitely stay within my comfort zone a little bit. Like, I've never traveled super far alone. even when I went to France, like I was like staying
Yeah.
like with a family or like, it was hard for me to kind of do things. I think that was obviously like a few years ago now. So maybe I'd be more open to
Yeah.
doing something like that. Did you find too it helped like I guess you were staying a lot of time in like hostels and stuff, so you're kind of around people who are doing the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that definitely helped because like everybody's in the same like mindset, and other people that are alone, like they also are kind of looking to meet people. So I think there's like kind of a mutual understanding
Totally.
of like, oh, let's just kind of hang out, I guess. But I mean, and I think even
Yeah.
like we mentioned earlier, like some people might be like, oh, like I could never do that, or like 6 months is way too long, or I have a job, I can't leave, like, and all these like valid, totally valid reasons. But like I was even talking to somebody and they're saying, oh, like, I think that's too long for me. Like, I don't think I could do it. And it's like, it's so far. And I'm like, you know what? You don't even have to start. Like, if solo travel is something you even want to get into, like, I don't know why I did such like a big thing for my first solo travel
You're
experience.
like,
Like,
I'm diving
I said,
right
I'm
in.
just going to do the whole thing, like, whatever. But there's like definitely
0 to 100.
better ways to
Yeah.
do it. Like, you can also just like, I'm just going to go for a weekend or maybe a week. And it doesn't have to be far, or it can be somewhere where you feel comfortable speaking the language where you know what, okay, actually, I don't want to be in a place where I don't understand what everybody's saying. Okay, well, go somewhere where people speak English, or go somewhere where you feel like, okay, you know what, I kind of want to practice this language. Like there's different ways to do it where you can be alone, but without like the whole, I'm in India by myself kind of thing. There's definitely more accessible ways to
Yeah.
kind of get started, I think.
Well, it's very inspiring because I'm like, honestly, sometimes you just need to not think about stuff and
Yeah.
do it. And that was kind of even with this podcast. I remember like I didn't really think about it that long and I was like, yeah, so I made my podcast. And you were like, what?
Yes.
Like, wow, that happened so fast. And I was like, yeah, like I kind of just, someone told me I should. And I was like, you know what? I want to. So let's do it.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like yeah, it can be fun to just like be spontaneous and be like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And like, I'll figure it out later. And like that
Yeah.
could go for like anything in your life.
Yeah, because sometimes it's a
So
motivator
I
too,
like that.
because it's like, oh, it motivates you to be like, okay, well, actually, I started this, so now I have no choice but to finish it. Sometimes we get so stuck in like the
Mm,
planning stages of things, where I think we're like, okay, I'm planning, and then you just end up like over planning things where you're like, I don't even know how to start anymore because everything's like so mapped out, and it just feels like you kind of get stuck there. Where it's like, at least if you do it, then you have like no
yeah.
choice but to finish it, kind of thing.
Definitely. And it's like enjoy the process. Like one thing you were saying is like, "Oh, your setup's looking good now." Cuz I kind of started the podcast. I didn't really know what I was doing. Like I'm kind of doing a lot trial and error. Even this like video recording, this is the first time we're doing this and we've already had like bumps and bruises. Like I feel like but it's just part of the process and it's kind of fun. Like I actually enjoy the process of like getting better at something. And
Yeah,
like I
definitely.
don't like being bad at things, but it's cool to be like, okay, something where I'm taking in different skills that I have and like, it's something I enjoy doing. So like let's learn how to do it. And I
Yeah.
think anyone can kind of teach themselves how to do anything these days. There's so many resources out there. If I run into a problem, I just like Google it really quick and like I don't know, it's just fun to kind of try things out. So I feel like that can go for like any area of life.
Yeah, I think that you have like I also like that's something I really always like admired about you is that you have like a really good uh like fighter mindset where like you'll get things done.
Mm.
And I think even with like the fight to win and everything, like once you have the idea in your head, I feel like you really like go for it and you're like, okay, you know what? I'll figure it out along the way. Like I got this. Like you're like
Mhm.
you believe in yourself. I feel like that's such a good, I don't know, you've got the right attitude to
Yeah.
do like things like that.
Yeah. Well, your mindset matters. Don't forget.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, one thing I didn't know if I was going to bring up, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting, and we'll see where this goes. But like, we are very different in terms of one aspect of our lives. Can you guess what I'm
Yeah.
thinking about?
Yeah, I think so.
So,
Actually, I thought about
Tess and
this earlier
I,
too.
yeah. So, should we talk about it a
Yeah,
little
let's talk
bit?
about it.
Okay. So, Tess and I are very similar in a lot of ways, and I feel like I don't know, we get along super well. Like you've honestly become like one of my best friends. And one thing we're so different, like opposites in, is dating.
Yeah.
So Tess has like always had a boyfriend, and I never have a boyfriend. I haven't
Really?
had a boyfriend in like 5 years, and you have like always had a boyfriend, which is
Yeah.
like again, it's like to each their own. Like I just can't even imagine like your side of it, and I feel like you might feel the same about me.
Totally.
But like I don't even know how to start this conversation. It's just like interesting to me how we're like so different in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like I might not be like a great example also to like follow because I think that I don't necessarily always get into relationships for the right reasons. Or like it'll start off where I'm
Mm,
like, oh, I need time alone, and then I'll meet somebody and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love this person, and then I end up where I am. So I don't know like how that happens, but I think that God forbid something were to happen like in the current relationship that I'm in, then like for sure I'd be like, okay, this is like I have got to just chill for a minute. Like I need to be alone, because I mean,
mm.
yeah, I don't think I necessarily am the right example, but yeah, I mean, I think I need to pull a slick Vic and be
Yeah.
alone.
And meanwhile, I'm like always telling Tess if I'm like maybe seeing someone for a little bit or just like I've gone on maybe like a couple dates and it's just like not going anywhere. I'm like, yeah, I just ended things, like whatever. And she's always like, oh my God, like how? Like I feel so awkward even ending things. And I'm like, but I also feel like you're still very independent in a way. Like I feel like I don't see you as someone who's like dependent on another person. I mean, we just talked about how you spent seven
Yeah.
months traveling by yourself. So like even though you've kind of always been someone to like enjoy someone's company and like have a boyfriend, like I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. Like I would say from my perspective, I really enjoyed my time alone just to like grow as a person.
Yeah.
But something I used to believe, which like my mind has totally changed on, is I used to be like, well, if I don't think it's my husband, like I don't want to even date them because I used to think
Yeah.
like, what's the point? But what I've learned is like it doesn't have to be that serious. Like, Vic, chill.
Yeah.
You can have fun. If you have fun with someone and enjoy their company and like you get along and you genuinely like have a connection, like
That's
you
okay.
can't,
Yeah.
again, we kind of can't plan everything. So who cares if you don't know if it's a future or not? Like, I think that's somewhere where I hold myself back and I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't care anyway. So, like, bye. So it's like maybe that is like not the best way to go about it either, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's like I feel like we're on opposite sides, but neither of us is like the best way.
Yeah. I think we're like too extreme maybe, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like also, I mean, I think we have like the same mindset, but different approaches because I'm like,
Experience.
I
Yeah.
think I used to say, like I mean anyways, you know who my ex is and stuff, so I mean like you saw like I mean you knew like how I was, and I was like always doing things like we were always together and things like that. But like I think that from that relationship that I kind of was like, okay, actually I do need to be more dependent and just like do things kind of
Mm.
on my own, so I think that actually I learned a lot from like that relationship ending where I was like, okay, you know what, like I can be in love with somebody but then also have my own time, just
Which is
do
so
like do things
important.
that I like
Yeah.
to do outside of this person. And I think that before, I
Okay.
mean, I was doing the same thing as you, where I was like, okay, like if I'm not dating this person to marry them, then like what's the point? Like, oh, don't waste my time. And now I'm just thinking, you know what? Like relationships can change so fast. Like, I mean, the person you're dating now, maybe it won't be the same person I'm going to be with in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Who knows? Like, things can change so fast. But, like, in a way, before I can't, and like my past self, I think she would be shocked to hear me say this. Like, I don't think I would ever believe that I would say this. But I'm just like, you know what? Maybe things aren't that deep, Like, you can be okay with, like if a relationship ends, it ends. And like that can just be part of that's just part of the process. And like
It's like
I'm
your
even shocked to
chapter.
hear the words come out of my own mouth. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've changed so much
Yeah.
in the past few years, but like it's such a easier mentality to have because you take away like the stress of dating. It's like, you know what? I'm happy right now. And maybe, yeah, maybe it's gonna end and like of course I'll be sad and that's totally normal, but at least right now I'm just enjoying the moments that I'm having and like it's a learning experience for the future and like no stress, it's fine. Just see what happens,
Yeah,
Who
totally.
cares?
And it makes me think of like friendships. I feel like I grew a lot in like losing certain friendships the past couple of years because like I
Yeah.
haven't been in a relationship, but like I've learned a lot with that same mindset of like, okay, sometimes people are there for like a chapter of your life.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to stick around forever. And that can go for like a relationship, friendships, even like relatives. Like you never know what's going to happen. And it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be that deep. Like I used to be so like if I'm not dating and it's not going to be serious, then
Yeah.
like I don't want a boyfriend. Like I'd rather be on my own. But it's like, okay, but if you genuinely enjoy their company and have fun, like obviously I'm not going to force something with someone who I'm
Yeah, yeah.
not enjoying myself with. But if I'm having fun and like I like their company, I like who they are as a person, then like you don't have to think that far ahead.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of my current approach. I have yet to meet anyone that like I feel that with, so
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see. But I don't know. But yeah, I think I'm learning to like take it less seriously and be like, look, like at the end of the day, everything in life is like not that deep.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, we're all
I feel
like,
like we
yeah,
make it
for sure.
stressful.
Yeah.
Like we're literally on a floating rock and
Yeah,
like
just go with the
it doesn't
flow,
have to
just
be that
vibe, you
deep.
know?
Yeah, I like that because I used to be the opposite and it was hard for me to like go with the flow. And I feel
Yeah.
like I've since learning that and being able to just like accept that life is going to throw things at you, like I'm just enjoying life a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like way less anxiety. And I mean, for sure, like I say this and like maybe I don't always listen to my own advice, you know, or sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm stressed about this or
Of
whatever.
course.
But I think like I've really, maybe like let's say with the relationship, I feel so much less anxiety in this relationship than like I did in maybe any others. Just
Mm,
because I'm like, you know what? I just feel like, you know what, this is good. Like I'm right now. Yeah, maybe like I know the relationships could be temporary. So I have that piece of information, but like me worrying about it isn't actually gonna change anything. So I'm
for
just
sure.
gonna see what happens and like be happy while I'm happy. And like the point of like stressing about something that hasn't happened yet is just like too time consuming. I can't do it anymore.
No, I know. I love that. I think too, it's like goes back to like people spend so much time of their life thinking
Yeah.
instead of acting. And like, I don't know, I'm reading a few books right now that are putting a lot in perspective of like, just take action towards whatever goals you're working on. You don't have to think so long term. It can be a short term goal, but like, just stop thinking about it and just like do what you want to do. Like, if it's not harming anyone and it's not like against the law, like, just do what you want to do
Yeah.
and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, and you don't have to be like perfect at everything too, you know. I think I used to be this way. I'm like, oh, unless I'm like perfect at it or like really good at something, then like I shouldn't even try to do it. But it's like, you know what? I mean, you have to start somewhere, and like not everything has to be perfect. You know, you can just kind of see what happens and try stuff if you like it, and it's fine to change your mind and just see what you know. Just go with what life throws at you. You
Yeah,
know?
it's just life.
Yeah,
Yeah, like sample things, try new things. If you don't like it, then you don't have to do it again. But
yeah.
like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for
That was
talking
like a
with me
perfect
today, Ted.
end. That was like such a perfect like.
I feel
There's
like
my
that was
life
a good little
lesson.
juicy
Yeah.
wrap up. Okay, would you have like one piece of advice for anyone who's like, maybe, I don't even know what I want to say. Like, one
Yeah,
piece of
yeah.
advice in general that you would give that we haven't maybe touched on?
Okay, this is a piece of advice, and like I'm not a very good explainer, but I think
That's okay.
like maybe this is something that I would like have loved to tell myself when I was younger. But maybe
Mm,
like you know when you see people like living their life and you're like, oh, I wish I could do that. Literally, you can do that. Like it's you can do it. And because sometimes you know you compare yourself to other people and you're like, oh, I don't know, like how are they doing it? You can do it too. Like I swear,
yeah.
things don't have to be that deep. And like literally,
Just go do what
just
you
a life
want. That's
lesson.
it.
Yeah, just do
Okay,
it.
I
Make
love
it
it.
happen.
Thank you. Okay, I love that. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to
Yes.
Mindset Matters. And don't forget to subscribe. We're now on YouTube as well. So go check out the video if you haven't already. Thank you, Tess.
Thank you.
And everyone, I will chat with you soon.